Say what?
Hello and welcome back. It's time for Say What, where we hear from those connected to the industry about what's going on in our world of electrical apprenticeship. And we keep saying it, and I'll keep saying it, that it includes the topics that you've suggested or have brought to us in various ways. So please keep those coming. I'm Cindy Sandifer, your host, and I'm here with Todd Stafford, the Executive Director of the Electrical Training Alliance. And today we've got a super special treat for you. We are joined by Keith Edwards and Grace Smith with the Electrical Workers Minority Caucus. And you may have heard that said EWMC for short. And they are going to talk about the amazing work that they do and how we can get involved. Well, will you all share with us a little bit about the EWMC? I'm just thinking there's a lot of people out there that don't know what it stands for, who you are. Like, can you, Keith, I'll start with you. Can you tell us about it?
Well, we all belong to a brotherhood, IBEW. But I think EWMC really brings it home to what a brotherhood is about, because EWMC is a family. We're siblings. People feel safe and secure when they come to EWMC. They feel their voices will be heard, and they are heard. And that's a testament to our success. Sister Robbie Sparks got us started back in '91. We started in '74, years ago, at the convention in Kansas City. But Robbie Sparks reinvigorated us, our renaissance, I call it, back in '91. And we've been having annual meetings ever since. And what really is pervasive throughout the EWMC is Sister Sparks' spirit, because she has such a giving, caring, loving spirit. And she doesn't take no for an answer when it comes to people being treated fairly and equitably. And that's who she is. And that spirit will never die. That spirit is what drives EWMC today.
Yeah, that I had mentioned to y'all, like, only attended a virtual conference. Was my first time experiencing it. And even virtually, you know, when you can feel that sense of community and belonging and that fire, and that everyone is welcome. I mean, that was one of the most beautiful things to see. And it's just, and that was one of the first thoughts. I think I was texting Todd during the conference, because I'm like, everyone needs to know about, you know, the Electrical Workers Minority Caucus. Like, everyone needs to know. And I think there's too many apprentices, because that's who we deal with most, is the JTCs, the AJTCs. You know, I'm like, do they know? Do they even know this exists? You know, so that was one of the things that you moved me to feel during that. Grace, anything you want to add to who you all are?
Well, President Abbott said it all, but what we do, we're the EWMC. We are fighting for working class families for many years. We're forever lifting up, forever moving forward. Who do we represent? We represent all IBEW members. And, you know, we're here to make the brotherhood of IBEW better. And that's what EWMC was founded for back in 1974. As Keith said, you know, a few delegates of African American Hispanic, they met at the 30th annual convention, and they felt that their voices were not being heard. And so they formed at that time. We've been called the Black Caucus, and we ended up with the EWMC. And we're here, we're IBEW members, and we're here to make the IBEW better.
And there's no doubt you do that, because my experience was that I felt more at home with the brother and sisterhood ever had before at EWMC meeting, no doubt. So you've succeeded in that effort, no doubt.
Yeah, you've taken it to this whole different level. So how did you find out about the EWMC, and how did you get involved, Keith? Like, what was your first steps?
Well, I became a business rep in my local 48 in Portland, Oregon, and we're predominantly a construction local. But one of my duties as a business rep was Siemens Energy and Automation. Under the IBEW banner, the Siemens Energy and Automation had what we call a system council. Sister Sparks out of 2127 in Atlanta, Georgia, was the president of that system council. And also we had, that's how we met, because like I say, that was my assignment in my local. We had a Siemens Energy and Automation panel fab plant in Portland. And so we met through that, and through that we had conversations. And Sister Sparks, that was back in 1990, and Sister Sparks was talking about, well, you know what, I'm trying to put together a conference next year. We're going to have it in Atlanta, and we're going to have some people show up, and we're going to talk about some issues and concerns that we have with them trying to improve or make the IBW better. And so that's when Robbie and I met, and immediately there's something that I share. I had one sibling, a younger brother, who I lost about 40 years ago. But I always had this thing. There was something always that I wanted a big sister, and I was always looking for a big sister. And when I met Sister Sparks, that is my big sister. We are not biologically connected, but we're even closer than biological siblings. Because we love one another, we respect one another, and we care for one another. And she was the big sister that I'd been looking for. And so our relationship has only blossomed and grown since then. And we, from there, I went to Atlanta in January of '91. And there's probably Sister Royetta Sanford out of our local 18 in LA says that we had 40 some people there. Robbie and I say we had probably about 25 or 30 people there. But it was a good conference. It was a good beginning. And at that conference, we talked about the convention coming up, the 100th anniversary convention in St. Louis. And we put together a plan to establish what we wanted was a minority affairs department in Washington, D.C. out of the IO. What came out of that was a human services department, and Royetta Sanford was the first director of that department. Mm-hmm. And we've gone forward since then, and we've had many things that have really impacted the IBW along the way, as far as what we do with our conference, how it's caught on to the IBW and other labor organizations, and how it's made such a difference. I think we consider ourselves probably the soul and conscience of the IBW. Our conference that we have in January, which we've been moving, it goes all around the country. We've been in Atlanta several times. We've been in Chicago several times. We've been in Portland a couple of times. We've been in Seattle. We've been in LA a few times. Been in Kansas City a couple of times. And so we continue to move around in different places, Washington, D.C., New York City. We've been in Tampa. I take that back. I'm sorry. We've been in Orlando, Florida. But we continue to move around so we can have more exposure and try to get the information out to all the brothers and sisters in the IBW, so they can understand that a lot of times we've been perceived as an organization that wants to either take over the IBW or divide the IBW and separate. We're not about separation. We're about collaboration and coordination, and we want to bring the IBW together so that everybody feels that they're a part of this organization and has a voice and is treated with equity and inclusion. And we're going to be a diverse organization. This country is diverse. The IBW is diverse, and we're going to be diverse in our leadership as well as throughout the brotherhood.
Like as you're sitting there, I'm feeling that, right? This collaboration, this idea of it's making us stronger, it's making us better. But to think it started with you finding that big sister, that you because of the work you were doing. It wasn't regarding, this focus of equity and inclusion. It was focused on your work. And then you make, this connection with this big sister, and then moving forward. And then you guys go on to do incredible work and bringing people together. And that's just beautiful to me. Grace, what about you? Like, how did you get involved?
I'm happy to say it's been in January, it will be 20 years. I had a very forward-thinking business manager. His name was Danny Johnson, and he called a couple of us union members who were, he saw that we were actively participating within our local, and he got 5 of us from different parts of the company and said, hey, I heard about, EWMC. I want you to go, and I want you to find out and bring it back to the local. And that was it. I was in awe. I had been a union member then for probably 19 years. And I had never heard of EWMC. And the first, when I got to the meeting, it was the day of service, and it was, all these people that looked like me, and they embraced me, and they were willing to help me and willing to educate me, and and I learned so much. My very first conference was in Portland, Oregon. And it was really cold that year, and we were outside. and I come from P&I, so I'm actually inside. And so I was outside working with my construction union brothers and sisters, and it was just the most amazing feeling. And that was just the first day, and that was just the community service. And then when you start listening to Robbie Sparks, when she spoke, and she told the history of EWMC, and she told the history that that I didn't know. It's like when we speak of EWMC and we speak of IBEW, we don't tell the true history. Minorities had to sue the union to be involved, and you don't learn that history, and that history was taught. And it just brought us up to the most current day. And, and I met sisters like Dorothy Fortier out of 1245. I met Carolyn Williams out of Local 613. I met Rayetta Sanford out of Local 18. And it's all these amazing women and women of color who were doing amazing things in IBEW that I never knew was possible. Mm-hmm. And again, and it's like I say, 20 years, and it's like, and I am just, I'm here. It's like, and I'm never ever leaving.
Yeah, well, we thank you. No doubt, we definitely thank you for your efforts and your work as well, because there's no doubt the greatest strength of our IBEW brother and sisterhood is we're feeling like a family. And whatever you do to elevate that, it elevates all of us. So thank you.
Yeah, and you're not just here, Grace. Like, I've experienced you like in conferences. Like, you're doing so much, and I love that you talked about, seeing yourself. That's one of the most important things. And I know as the IBEW and NECA and we, are moving forward in this to make our industry, as you pointed out, better. This isn't about separating. It's about recognizing there's so many more people out there that can contribute to being a part of our family, contribute to the work we do, make a difference in their community, and we're missing that if we don't pull in and recognizing our history. When we try to cover stuff up, nothing good comes from that, because it just, those roots are deep, and we need to recognize them, expose it, accept, that this happened, and then realize we don't ever want to be there again. What do we do to make sure that doesn't happen? But I wanted to point out the community service. I think that's such an important part of what, it's not just a conference, where you're learning, right? It's not just all sole focused on us. I mean, you're going out, right?
Yes, we're going out into whatever city that we're in. We go out to that city, and we have anywhere from 5 to 13 service projects, anywhere from 5 to 600 delegates that actually come in early to do the day of service. And we're actually giving back. And we get up early, like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. We come down. We have prayer. We eat breakfast. The delegates, they go out to their areas to volunteer, and it could be a homeless shelter, it could be cleaning the park, it can be installing light fixtures, it could be fixing electrical fixtures. I mean, it's all gamuts of community service, and and our members, our delegates are getting up. I mean, they love that. Some bring their own tools, like they travel with their tools, and and they're just ready to put in the work and to give back, because community service is one of our founding items for EWMC, of giving back to our community.
And that's what it's about, right? That's what makes that togetherness that Keith was talking about. That's what proves it, right? We're not just doing this for us. We're doing it for our communities and the communities that we serve every day. And then I think the local chapters do this, right? Like, they do community service wherever they are. Is that correct?
Not only community service, but we have an International Day of Service, so we all coordinate on that particular Saturday around the country and in Canada. Our chapters are doing community service, and I think what it does at our conference, it sets the tone. It's about giving. It's about getting out of yourself and giving back to that community. perform somewhere around 2,000 hours of community service in one day. And I think that's amazing in itself. But that's like Grace says, our volunteers show up on Wednesday, and if they don't have projects to do on Thursday morning, they're going to be very disappointed and upset. And they're very clear about that. They don't have a problem getting up early and getting out, whether it's in Denver or whether it's in Detroit. And oddly enough, when we were in Detroit, it was a beautiful sunshiny day. And that because we're always in January, but it always works out that we end up having these projects, and they try to plan for making sure that they're indoors in the north of our country, because it could be rather chilly, or we can have really terrible inclement weather. But for some reason it always turns out well, and we always get the service done for the community. And it's not only good for EWMC and our conference and getting folks in that mindset, but it also helps them, the local union that is hosting it, because we try to make sure that we have a little blurb on the news that evening that lets the community know that this is what the IBEW is about. We're about giving back. We're not just out here as a labor organization and, oh, we want more money, we want more of this, we want more of that. It's take. That's not what we're about. And that message is loud and clear, that we're about giving. We appreciate what we have. We're going to fight to get more, but at the same time, we're going to always give back and help the communities that we're in and those that are less fortunate, because our projects typically are going to help communities and areas that normally wouldn't be able to get this work done otherwise, whether it's painting, whether it's landscaping work, whether it's electrical work, whether it's feeding the homeless with food baskets, and sometimes we work at daycare centers, at children's centers to help enhance their environment. So those are the kind of things that we do on a consistent basis wherever we go. And we always make sure that wherever EWMC goes, we're going to leave the community better than we found it.
It's beautiful. That's just absolutely beautiful, excuse me. So what do you want our listeners, like someone that's listening, maybe they've heard of you, maybe they've never heard, like what do you want them to know about the EWMC and the work you do? Grace, I'll start with you.
Okay. I just want to say that the EWMC mission is about leadership, activism, help lifting up others, and having a role and voice in our local union. The EWMC, it grew out of, the lack of diversity and inclusion within IBEW, but we're here. The primary mission is to promote equal opportunities of employment for minorities of all levels of IBEW, to, make the IBEW better, to give back to our community, to do the work that is needed, to show, give a positive light to the local unions and our local union activism.
Very well.
Excellent. Keith, anything you want to add to that?
We're an educational organization as well. We want to make sure that our members know and understand. What we've noticed is that too often our members, and this is not just the EWMC members, this is IBEW members as well, they take an oath, an obligation to the Constitution, but they never read that document. Mm-hmm. And so we want to encourage them to know more about the document that they took an oath to. Because if everyone looks at that document that took an oath to it, I think oftentimes they would change their behavior. There's objects in that document. There's also the declaration that's in the beginning of that document as well. And it talks about things about humanity, and so it talks about treating our sisters and brothers as equal and helping them and lifting them up. And that's what we're about as an organization as well. And I think when that happens and our folks start getting that education and learning more about the IBEW, they can see what our founding fathers were about. Now, just like we're changing the Constitution, a new Constitution should be coming out this month, and it's going to have gender neutral language. That started with the EWMC. We don't have any standing at a convention, but we have allies that are able to make that happen. And we had 3, in fact, resolutions that were passed at this convention that enhance the Constitution and make it better. And those resolutions, of course, were promoted and supported by President Stevenson, as well as International Secretary Treasurer Cooper. And so our message sometimes has been challenging to get that message across. Change is difficult. However, we don't come from an adversarial place. We come from a collaborative place. And we try to convey that and make sure so that people understand and know that, yes, we are trying to change the IBW, because the IBW has always been kind to people of color and women. But we're going to work to change that so that everybody has an equal chance at any opportunities that they seek within the IBW, whether it's in leadership, whether it's in management, or being in union leadership. All of that is open to all members. Certainly, I know that my ambitions were pretty much limited when it comes to being in leadership in the IBW. I never had any desire to that. I was going to work with the tools and I was going to retire. But so then I started getting involved and coming to general membership meetings and realizing that there were things that I could influence and along with others to make the IBW a better organization. And I've learned a lot along the way. I've made a lot of great relationships throughout the country and in Canada as well. And those wouldn't have come about, I don't think, without the IBW and certainly without the EWMC, because in those relationships that we have made, and it's not just myself, it's our executive committee period, because we get to meet people from all over the country. And when we come together, we don't come together as Keith Edwards, president of the EWMC. I come as a retired IBW member, and I'm able to speak to brothers and sisters that pay dues just like I paid dues. And all of our executive committee and all of our chapters are shared. This information is shared with them so that they have a better understanding of, like I say, not to go in with the stick, but go in with a peace offering, if you will, or a handshake or a hug. And that, I think I shared it earlier, that we are known as the Hugging Conference. That may be a challenge this year, but I think people, if they may be hugging with masks on, but they will be hugging at our conference because that's who we are and that's what we're about. And I think that the beauty of our conference as well is that it happens in January. There's nothing going on early in January in the IBW typically. And so what happens is people come together and it rejuvenates them. They just got through the holidays and they got through maybe a rough or tough year, but it rejuvenates them and inspires them and encourages them to go back home to their local unions, share the information they received at our conference amongst those that were able to attend, and get to work, get busy, get your hands dirty and get involved. And it makes a huge difference. We're very proud that we have our first woman international vice president of the IBW. We have Leroy Chinchio out of Hawaii, who is on the IEC. And this is the second time that we've had a woman or person of color. Mel Horton was our first person of color that was IVP of the 5th District years ago. And we've also had, and I'm sorry, I lost his name that quick. And he's the business manager out of Local 77 in, Local 66 out of Houston, Texas. And he was our first IEC person of color. And it makes a huge difference. I can say that the IBP out of the 4th District has been making some really huge changes in how we do things and how we think about things and how we approach things. And hopefully her peers are looking at her and paying attention because diversity makes a huge difference because, the status quo has to change because it's not inclusive. And when it becomes inclusive and it becomes diverse, people have different approaches on how to do things. The EWMC has something else, a big secret that we have is that we have what we call the training that we do, the leadership training, the BLTI, Breakthrough Leadership Training Institute. That's something that's been put together, and we haven't used it recently simply because of COVID and being able to get around and perform the training. It's not something that we would do virtually. But that training, sometimes it's a hard sell to encourage some business managers to say that this training needs to occur, because we told them that training needs to happen for typically women and people of color, but also we want your e-boards, which are typically white male, to participate as well, so they can get an education and be exposed to different ways of thinking about things and how to approach different things and understand more about the EWMC as well. And in that Breakthrough Leadership Training Institute, we work on leadership issues, we work on leadership styles, we work on mentoring. We talk about a lot of different things that typically women and people of color don't receive in their local union, because it's typically the good old boy network. And so that's really important that they understand that. And when those white males that are on the e-boards, when they attend and they see that, they see, oh, they're not trying to destroy or tear anything down. They're trying to build up. They're trying to have inclusion. Oftentimes, what I like to share is that we weren't here 50 years ago, and we won't be here 50 years from now. We're just placeholders, and we're here to try to make the EWMC better. We're trying to make the IBEW better and make our communities better as well as our country. And in doing that, it's gonna make it really a place that people want to come to. And it not only in the IBEW, but it'll spread to other labor organizations. I know that sheet metal is currently in the process of working between their contractors association as well as the labor union to establish a minority affairs group, the minority caucus within the sheet metal. I know there's I have a UA business manager in my area who really was working to promote a minority caucus in their local union. So it is growing and it's catching on, and I think the leaders that are progressive understand that. Again, I know when we first started to try to encourage them to sponsor the BLTI and have them come to their local union, first thing they said, well, wait a minute, you're trying to teach folks how to take over our positions, run for business manager and be leaders. And we said, well, what's wrong with that? Maybe they can do the job better than you can. Just like you weren't always business manager, somebody else was business manager before you, and then you thought you could do a better job, and sometimes that happens. But the leadership is going to change in the IBEW, and I guess I go back to something I learned years ago from a business manager in my area in Local 46, and he was putting on a training for his members. And what the training consisted of was he would bring a member out of the field, and they would learn about their healthcare trust. They would learn about their training trust. They would learn about their pension trust. They would follow a business rep around for a while. They would follow an organizer around for a while. And then they would go back into the field. And his belief and thought was that someone was going to run for business manager and either beat him someday, or he would retire and someone else was going to come in. He didn't want someone to come in ignorant and not know about the job challenges and responsibilities so that they could best serve the membership. And that's what the EWMC is about. We want to make sure that we educate our folks so they have a clear understanding of what is expected of them if they do come into a leadership position, and so they can better serve the IBEW and the membership. And it only makes us all better.
Yeah, I love that idea of people want to say you're training your competition or whatever, someone to take over, but you don't want, if that person were to win, you don't want them ignorant, as you pointed out.
It's foresighted leadership. That's a rarity, but it's actually encouraged in a lot of ways to help our industry grow. You have to have that. So thank you for that, Brother Keith, no doubt.
Yeah, that's huge. And I love also how you're saying, as the EWMC is going in and wanting, it's about educating and it's about supporting. It's not going in as you said it much better than I am, but kind of wagging a finger at someone, telling them everything they've done wrong and walking out the door and saying, fix it. Mm-hmm. You're saying we're here. We want to make you better. We want to make us better. Let's fix it together. And I think that message is so different. And it makes me very understanding of why it's a hugging conference, because it makes you feel that like, no, we're doing this, even though it may be some tough work, let's bring it in, we're going to do it together. But you mentioned membership, and Grace, like, how does someone who's listening become a member of the EWMC?
Membership is open to all IBEW members, honorary or pensionary IBEW members. They can go to our local website, www.ibew/ewmc.org, and register. You can, we have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram page. You can tag any page, and it will connect you to our membership. And again, EWMC is open to all IBEW members, regarding of race, creed, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, political beliefs, whatever. You're an IBEW member, you can be an EWMC member.
That's incredible. So there's no excuse, is what anyone that's listening, go be a part of this, something that serves the IBEW, serves community, serves each other. And there's no doubt that you're going to grow and you're going to learn from being a part of this. So kind of last question as far as an action. So now we've told people how to become members. What about the JTCs and AJTCs that are listening? How do they get involved? What is it they could do maybe to help, let's say, the apprentices, right? What do they do to get the word out to their apprentices?
I think the way to go about that would be to encourage membership of all the participants. That would be the training directors, that would be the instructors, that would be, of course, the apprentices, the members to join the EWMC. And that gives them a better understanding of what the EWMC is about. And also, it helps them understand that, like I say, that we're not an adversarial group. We're just trying to make things better. I think another thing that helps is that they understand that there's 10 challenges that each chapter has, and those challenges are they're varied. They go from political action to organizing to community development, doing work in the community. A lot of the things that help build our base in the community. And when I say our base, the IBEW's base, so that folks have a different idea of what a labor union is really about. But also, I think that every JATC and AJATC would be better served by having a mentoring program. I think if they had a formal mentoring program that was monitored on a regular basis and mandatory for apprentices that are coming in, especially women and people of color that come in, because it's oftentimes a hostile environment. It's certainly a different environment. And so that helps them see that there is someone that looks like me that has been successful in this industry. I can be successful as well. Also, I think it would help to perhaps have an ombudsman. And that would be someone that could hear some of the grievances and have an objective opinion about it, instead of coming with preconceived notions about apprentices' concerns and issues. Too often, we've felt that apprentices don't just shut up and be quiet and do what you're told. And that attitude doesn't bode well with our young people today. And it shouldn't have ever been that way. But as we transition and change, we need to grow in our thought processes as well, and how we treat people. They should all be treated with respect and dignity, whether they're a first term apprentice or whether they're a journey level person. And so those are some things I think that would help not only the JATCs overall, but also and the AJATC as well, but also it helped the whole organization, the IBW, and it would help the NICA as well. Something that I'm very proud of in my local union that is still, even though I've been gone from leadership there for 20 years now, what is still going on today is that their JATC, when they walk into the room, it's not labor and management, it's JATC. Something that I did with Tim Gauthier, the chapter manager. We had a discussion, and we said, you know what, we're going to talk to the train director, and when they come into that room, they're no longer going to be management on one side of the table and labor on the other side of the table. They're going to sit around that room, labor management, all around that table, because they're no longer labor management once they step inside that room. They're JATC now. And that mentality changes the whole way that they think about things. They don't think about it as, well, here's a member coming in and they're apprentice, and maybe management wants to treat them bad, or maybe labor feels that they're not getting a fair shake. No, we're coming in as a JATC, and we're going to look at it objectively, and we're going to treat them, as if we're JATC. We're just one group here. We're not labor and management anymore. And that is, I think, has made it a huge difference. And I think oftentimes that doesn't, that's not conveyed around the country. I would probably just imagine, I haven't talked to a lot of JTCs, but I'm sure that most of them are still setting labor on one side of the table and management on the other side. And they figure that it's a battle. Well, how can we win in this scenario? Well, you can win by integrating your groups, your labor and management, and becoming the JTC, not labor management anymore. And I think that just bodes well. And that's something that came from just being in the EWMC and realizing that, we're IBW first and foremost. But at the same time, that IBW over history has not been kind to us. And so we need to look at things in a different way and make sure that everyone is treated with dignity and respect. Like I say, we're not trying to destroy the organization, we're only trying to improve it. And sometimes that improvement means that some people will have to move aside, and some people will have to go through some hard times and think about things differently, because they've thought that same old way. And when you bring young people involved and get them involved, and that just brings something to mind, that we're making decisions for those apprentices, but at the same time, the apprentices don't have any input into it. One of the things that EWMC does, one of those 10 challenges, is adopting a high school. Well, adopting a high school is at the end of the spectrum. And so we want to make sure that they adopt a middle school or junior high that feeds that high school, and adopting a elementary school that feeds that junior high or middle school. So that we have build relationships and get some information to young people as young as the third grade. And certainly it's a different presentation that they receive in the third grade than in the sixth grade than in the ninth grade. But we have to catch them early so that we can get them, so they can, if they decide that they want to be in the electrical industry, that they will be prepared and realize their education is valuable, even though they don't intend on going to college. And there's a misconception in this country that if you don't do well in school, then you can be in the building trades. And that's very poor information that's being shared with our young people and with their parents as well throughout the years. But I think that what happens with us when we get those relationships and we start building those relationships, our industry is going to be better, and it's going to be a lot easier to recruit and bring people in from disadvantaged communities and communities that have been disenfranchised over the years. Because what I found out a long time ago, that there's a vast majority of our kids that either don't go to college or don't graduate from college. And I'm talking in numbers around 70% of our kids that graduate from high school either do not go to college or they don't graduate from college. So we need to tell them that they need to be college ready when they come out of high school, but they can also take an opportunity to have a career opportunity in the building trades and certainly in the IBW. And lastly, I would just like to share as well that one of our biggest concerns of late is, we're involved in the political end of it. That we had people around the country that were certainly involved in the midterms, and especially in the runoff in Georgia. And we were successful in, I think, in making sure that Senator Warnock won the election. But also, what we really strive to do is to make sure that our young people are being heard and are being involved and listening to them. Sister Sparks started Renew before it became Renew. Years ago, she said that young people need to have a voice, and they need to be able to participate in what we're doing, because they think differently. Their brains work differently, but they have a voice, and they are the future. And so we have to make sure that we tap into that future and bring them along. And I'm sure Todd remembers this as well. Back in the day, when an apprentice came in, that apprentice was told to just carry the tools and never see the blueprints and never know what the job was like, except for that piece that they were being told about. And those days are over. Those days are way behind us. But the other main concern that we have at the EWMC is our P&I. Too often the IBW tends to lean toward construction. And the majority of our membership used to come from P&I, specifically manufacturing. So we're trying to work and make sure that we hear the folks that we have in P&I, reach out and support them in their issues and concerns. And our construction locals are going to have to do that as well. That's their sisters and brothers that they oftentimes feel that they're better than them, or they don't listen to their issues and concerns, or that's not my problem. That can't be going forward, because especially with the administration we have now that just created all these jobs that going forward, and we need to make sure that if we're going to take advantage of those jobs, we got to have people that are prepared to do it. If the IBW is going to do that work, and that's the intention, then we got a lot of work to do in our P&I portion of our organization and our brotherhood, because that needs to grow and be back. I've heard numbers that we used to have somewhere around 500,000 members in P&I. Well, we're certainly not even close to that today. And so we've got a lot of work to do, but it's going to not only come from the EWMC, it has to come from the IBW as well.
I understand, Keith. You touched on a couple of points there. I really feel passionate about myself and always encouraging the mentorship program. Big brother, big sister for our apprentices. I've said it 100 times. It's definitely needed in our industry, and I thank you for bringing that needed concept and put into action at the local programs. We have to have that take place. There's no doubt. The numbers show we need to take that program, and it works great. So thank you for bringing it up as well. The other part is about the JATC and the committee sitting around the table, and labor management rather than two sides of the table. Because as I tell everyone here, it's all about the apprentice in our mind, our student, our apprentice, whether it's a journey level worker or a CWCE, whoever it may be. That's who we're training. That's who we take care of. And if you take your hats off and you think about that approach, everything improves. And that comes from diversification of thought. I know exactly where it comes from. Your way of thinking, the way we think about things differently, and bringing different mindsets, different choices. That's what makes it possible. So thank you for bringing up both of those as well.
Yeah. You were preaching a little bit. I thought, man, I was like, I wanted to say amen and then realize this is a podcast, it's work, I'm not in church. But it was just, this idea of valuing people, right? Regardless of whatever, age, race, identity, whatever it may be, and recognizing the importance of hearing each other, and growing from that. And it just, and wow. Being a part of something bigger. And that includes, yes, like I may be IBW, I may be NECA, but when I'm here, right, the benefit is together. We don't do well apart. And we've learned that, right? We've learned the respect thing. I don't care if you're that first year apprentice, first day on the job, that person feeling respect is going to help retain them and grow them, not treating them like they're correct. Bottom of the totem pole, if you will. Grace, any closing thoughts from you? You want to preach with us too here a little bit?
Our president, he did an excellent definition. I just, EWMC, again, EWMC, we're IBEW members, far and foremost, but we are members who see that we can make the IBEW better. And we can make the IBEW better by going back to our locals, our job sites, our communities, and putting in the work, educating our members about IBEW, about leadership within the IBEW, just making it better. And we only can do this, if we have a seat at the table, if our voices are being heard. We can, say that we're IBEW members and we're going to make IBEW strong and we're going to, do the tenet of IBEW strong, but we have to be included. Our voice needs to be heard. And, EWMC was formed 1974. I was 1 year old when EWMC was founded. And all these years, we're still fighting for the same mission for when EWMC was created. And, I don't want, like he said, 50 years from now, we shouldn't be fighting for that same mission statement.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard the statement, make sure I get it right, but it's nothing about me without me. And I think that's kind of, in this, right? Like if we're trying to make this movement, we've got to make sure there's seats at the table. We've got to make sure voices are heard. And I cannot thank you all enough for really, not just for being here. I mean, I appreciate the time you took to be with us today, but also just the work that you do. Oh,
exactly. The work
like
you're doing
every
is very
day.
valuable. So thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, day in, day out. You're raising leadership, and I just appreciate your passion so much. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be heard.
Todd, what are your thoughts after that incredible episode? I always say they're incredible, but this one was. So what were your thoughts?
It was incredible. I mean, the work that Keith and Grace is doing is just outstanding in the work and teaching us that, that I'm always a big proponent of diversification of thought, new ways of thinking about an existing problem or future problem or eliminating problems that come into play. They're just showing us one example, and it's a great example. It shows how we all work together and emphasizes a couple points I truly believe, and that is the brotherhood, sisterhood of the IBEW. That's what makes us strong, and how we grow that membership, how we grow that family feeling, and showing how they do that, and how we reach out to all people in the member industry, which is important. We need to do that.
Absolutely, and I love the diversity within the EWMC, like as they talk about all that they do. Right. There's this education and training part, there's a community service part, there's history. It's acknowledging who we are, where we've come from, where we're going, and just that mentorship component, the recruitment. I just was, amazed even at that within them, what they're doing to make this possible and to make us better. That was the other thing that I think really hit home is we're not doing this to divide. We're not doing this to call out. We're saying let's come in together. Correct. And let's be better and grow. And that was just fantastic to me. Thank you so much, Keith and Grace, for your passion, for ensuring that we not only are aware of who the EWMC is, but that we know how to get involved and we know why we should get involved. And big thanks to you, the listener, for tuning in. Now, remember, we do want to hear from you. I've already mentioned that a lot. So if there are topics that you would like us to cover, if you want to join us on the podcast, just send an email to saywhat, that's SAYWATT, at electricaltrainingalliance.org. Our next episode will drop in March, and that is Women's History Month. And we're going to hear from just a few of the many phenomenal women here at the Alliance. Until then, stay connected with us through our newsletters, blog posts. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to this podcast. Stay powered up, and we will see you next time.
Say what?